I share a house with my boss, a secret that lives and breathes in the shadows of my every waking moment. This truth is a heavy, precious stone I carry locked within my chest. My name is Jessica. I am a young woman adrift in a vast, glittering city of glass and steel. I work in a towering monument to ambition, where the air hums with silent competition and fear. And he is Mr. Wilson, the sovereign king of this corporate domain, the man who makes entire rooms freeze with a single glance. He moves in a cloud of expensive cologne and sharp, tailored suits, his voice a thunderclap that shatters the quiet. When he enters the battlefield of our office, the click-clack of keyboards stutters and dies. Heads bow down, eyes frantically seeking refuge in the glow of computer screens. But I know a different man. A man the office ghosts have never seen. When the final bell of the workday echoes through the halls, a transformation begins. My colleagues, they gather their things, their faces softening with the promise of ordinary lives. One chats about a movie, her voice light with anticipation. Another laughs, describing a romantic dinner reservation. Their eyes turn to me, curious and bright. "What about you, Jessica?" And I paint on a gentle, tired smile, a perfect, fragile mask. "I'm just going home," I tell them, my voice a quiet river of lies. They see a simple girl, returning to a simple, lonely apartment. They picture a silent television and an empty bed. They are so beautifully, tragically wrong. I wait until the last footstep fades. I linger in the marble lobby, my heart a trapped bird against my ribs. Then, the sleek black car glides to the curb, a shadow come to life. I slip inside, into the warmth, into the silence. And he is there, behind the wheel. He turns, and the stern ruler of my daylight world is gone. In his eyes, a kindness so deep it steals my breath. "Hello, Jessica," he says, and his voice is a hearth fire. "Did you have a good day?" I can only nod, my throat tight. "Yes, Mr. Wilson." We do not speak of spreadsheets or memos. We drive, away from the piercing city lights into the gentle embrace of the whispering suburbs, to a sanctuary of stone and ivy, a house that holds its breath for our arrival. Inside, we cook. We share a meal at a worn wooden table. And when night falls, I sleep beneath his roof. I know what you're thinking. You are weaving a story of secret love, a forbidden romance. No, that is not our story. He is a man touched by silver, his life etched with lines I have not yet earned. He could be my father. So why? Why does this young woman share a home with her powerful, older boss? This is not a tale of scandal. It is a story carved from desperation and sealed with an unexpected grace. To understand this fragile present, you must first drown in the shadows of my past. My beginning was written in earth and sky. A tiny village where the horizon was a quilt of green fields, not a cage of skyscrapers. We were a family of sun-warmed skin and calloused hands. My father, a farmer, whose laughter was as deep as the soil. My mother, whose love was the mortar of our home. We were rich in heart, but our pockets held only dust and dreams. And I dreamed of more. I ached to lift them from the weight of their struggle. I pictured myself in crisp clothes in a bright room, sending home envelopes thick with hope. "I will go to the city," I declared, the words tasting of both iron and fear. "I will take care of you." My mother's tears fell like summer rain on my cheeks as she held me. "The city is a hungry beast, Jessica. It chews up gentle souls." But I was steeled by love. "I am strong," I whispered into her hair. I arrived in the metropolis with a single bag and a hope so thin It was almost transparent. The city's roar was a physical force, a constant pressure against my chest. Yet I found a foothold, a small, trembling job at Mr. Wilson's mighty company. An assistant. The title was humble, the pay a meager stream. But it was a beginning. I claimed a tiny apartment, a gray box with thin walls that echoed with the lives of strangers. It was mine. I bought a narrow bed, a shaky table, and when that first salary landed in my palm, I performed a sacred ritual. A little for food, a little for rent. The rest, I sent flying home on wings of paper and promise. My letters were masterpieces of fiction. The city is beautiful. My boss is kind. I am happy. The city was a lonely desert, and my boss was a distant, stormy mountain. He saw only a function, a pair of hands to pass him papers. Copy this, file that. My name was irrelevant. But I clung to my purpose. It was my anchor in the roaring sea. Then, the storm hit. The phone call shattered my world like a bullet through glass. My sister's voice, ragged with tears, bleeding through the line. "Jessica, it's Dad. His heart." The floor vanished beneath my feet. He was dying. A simple, brutal word. Dying. An operation was his only rope back to us, and the cost was a number so astronomical it belonged in a star chart, not a medical bill. I stared at the pathetic digits in my bank account. A sob clawed its way up my throat. There was no choice. Love is not a choice. I gathered every last coin, every scrap of paper money. I sent it all away. "Save him," I commanded the void. And by some miracle, they did. My father's voice, weak but alive, came down the line. "Thank you, my angel." I smiled so wide my face hurt, and when the call ended, I crumpled to the floor of my tiny room and wept until I was hollow. I had bought his life with my own. The landlord's fist on my door was the drumbeat of my new reality. "Rent, now!" My apology was a leaf in a hurricane. "This is business," he snarled, his eyes like flint. "Get out." That night, I placed my single key on the bare table. The door clicked shut behind me, a sound more final than any judgment. The city streets swallowed me whole. I was invisible, a ghost with a suitcase. The shame was a taste, sour and permanent on my tongue. I told no one. My cheerful co-workers, with their lunch plans and new shoes, they could never know. My parents, their worry would have been a second disease. All I had was a rusty, aging car, a metal shell on 4 wheels, and so it became my coffin and my castle. I learned the geography of survival. A quiet street under a broken street lamp became my address. The back seat, a torturous slab that twisted my spine into knots of agony. But the mornings were a special kind of hell. I would wake in the icy gray dawn, my breath painting ghosts on the windshield, every joint screaming. And then the performance would begin. In the grim bathroom of a gas station, I would piece myself together, splashing frozen water on a face pale with exhaustion, applying makeup to hide the purple maps under my eyes, smoothing the wrinkles from my only office dress. I would meet my own haunted eyes in the mirror. "Just get through the day," I would murmur to the ghost in the glass. "Nobody knows." And I would walk into the office, a bright, empty smile on my face. "Good morning!" I made the coffee. I typed the reports, while my stomach gnawed on itself with a vicious, endless hunger. When the team went for lunch, I'd wave them off. "Oh, I had a huge breakfast!" Another lie. I drank water from the cooler and tried to silence the roaring in my veins. The world outside my car window turned cold and brutal. Winter descended with icy teeth. My car was a metal tomb, a freezer that seeped into my bones. Two thin blankets were a pathetic defense. I shivered myself into a fitful sleep, my body trembling for hours on end. The hunger and cold were thieves, stealing my strength, my warmth, the very light from my eyes. My clothes hung on me like sacks. I was disappearing. And then, my body betrayed me. A dizzy spell at my desk, the world tilting on its axis, a desperate lunge for a file, and the floor rose up to meet me. A crash of darkness. Silence. I swam back to consciousness on a sea of soft leather. The world slowly pieced itself together. I was on the sofa in Mr. Wilson's private office, and he was kneeling beside me. The storm cloud authority was gone from his face, replaced by something I had never seen. Alarm. Tenderness. He held the glass of water like a sacred offering. "Jessica, look at me. Are you all right?" I scrambled to rise, humiliation burning my cheeks. "I'm so sorry, Mr. Wilson. I'll get back to work. I'm fine." No. That single word, so soft, yet it pinned me in place. He studied me, his gaze seeing past the clothes, the desk, the pretense. It saw the emptiness inside. "Jessica, when did you last eat a real meal?" I looked away, my defenses crumbling to ash. The truth was a dam breaking behind my eyes. I don't remember." "Jessica," he said, my name a lifeline. "What is happening to you?" And I broke. The tears came in a torrent, a flood of 2 months of ice and fear and loneliness. "I sent it all home. My father was sick. I have nothing. I'm so sorry." He didn't interrupt. He didn't scold. He just listened. When my sobs subsided into hiccups, he asked the final, devastating question. "Where are you living, Jessica?" The silence stretched, thick and suffocating. "Tell me, my car." The words hung in the air, ugly and small. He stared at me. He looked past me, out the window, where a cold rain had begun to streak the glass like tears. "You are sleeping. In your car? In this?" I nodded, a tiny, shameful movement. "I have blankets. I manage." He stood up abruptly, turning his back to me. His shoulders were tense. I braced for the fury, for the dismissal. "I'm sorry," I choked out. "Please, don't fire me. I'll do better." He spun around, and in his eyes I saw it wasn't anger at me. It was fury at the universe, at his own blindness. "Fire you?" he said, his voice thick. "Jessica, I am furious at myself. You have been vanishing before my eyes, and I saw nothing." He grabbed his coat with a decisive motion. "Get your things." "Where are we going?" "To get your car," he said. "And then, you are coming to my home." "Your home?" The concept was from a different planet. "Yes, it is too large for one man. It has rooms that hold only dust and echoes. You will not spend another night in a frozen metal box. You will stay in the guest room. You will stay until you are back on your feet." "That," he said, a faint, warm hint of his office self returning, "is an order." And so, I followed his taillights through the weeping rain, my rattling old world following his sleek, quiet one. We arrived at a haven I could only have dreamed of, a house that stood solid and kind amidst towering trees. Inside, warmth enveloped me like an embrace, the scent of old books and polished wood and clean linen. He led me to a room, a real room, with a bed so wide and deep it looked like a cloud, with pillows that promised to swallow every nightmare, a window gazing out on a sleeping garden, a bathroom with gleaming tiles and the promise of endless hot water. "This is yours," he said, placing a key in my trembling hand. I stood in the center, utterly lost. An hour before, I had been a creature of pavement and frost. Now, I was standing in a palace of peace. Why? I whispered, the question torn from my soul. Why would you do this? He looked away, a shadow passing over his features. I have a daughter, he said, his voice distant. She lives across an ocean. I miss her every single day. He met my eyes again. And I pray, if she were ever lost and cold in a strange city, that someone with a spare room and a lonely heart would offer her shelter. So I am offering it to you. That night, I stood under a cascade of hot water until my skin turned pink and my bones finally thawed. I put on soft, borrowed clothes. We ate a meal at his kitchen island, simple chicken, vibrant vegetables, and it was a feast fit for royalty. And then I faced the bed. I lowered myself into its impossible softness. I pulled the duvet up to my chin, and for the first time in an eternity, I felt safe. I slept a sleep of the dead and the reborn. Life rearranged itself. By day, the office remained a stage. I was Jessica, the assistant. He was Mr. Wilson, the CEO. Our interactions were crisp, professional, a silent ballet of pretended distance. But the evening drive was a gateway to another world. A world of shared cooking, where I discovered the joy of feeding someone who appreciated it. This is wonderful, Jessica. I usually just eat leftovers alone. A world of conversation that stretched into the night. He shared stories of building his empire from scratch. He saw a keen mind behind my quiet demeanor. You have a sharp intellect. You should not be fetching coffee forever. He became my mentor, my nighttime professor. Books appeared for me on the coffee table. Lessons on finance, on management, on strategy. I studied with a hunger that had nothing to do with food. I wanted to be worthy of this second chance. We watched old movies, his laugh a rich, surprising sound. He had a lumbering, friendly dog named Buster, who would lay his head in my lap and sigh with contentment. In those quiet hours, I found a fractured reflection of the family I missed so desperately. He was a guardian, a protector. But outside our bubble, suspicion grew like a poisonous weed. The office whispers began as a faint hiss and grew into a chorus. Sarah, a colleague with ambition sharp enough to cut glass, became the conductor. One afternoon, she appeared at my desk, a viper with a smile. Jessica, I saw something interesting yesterday. My blood turned to ice. Oh, I managed, my eyes glued to my screen. You, leaving in Mr. Wilson's car. After hours. My heart hammered a frantic tattoo against my ribs. He needed files for an off-site meeting. It was urgent. She leaned in, her perfume cloying and aggressive. An urgent meeting at 6 p.m.? How dedicated of you. Her eyes narrowed. You're always with him now. You're the golden girl. People are starting to talk, Jessica. She let the sentence hang, a noose waiting for my neck. Are you sleeping with him? No! The word burst from me, my face flaming. He's my boss, that's all. She laughed, a sound like breaking glass. Sure, just be careful. Rumors have a way of becoming truth, especially for girls who get too close to the sun. She left me there, trembling with a mix of rage and terror. The gossip became a wall I walked into every day. Conversations would die when I entered the lunchroom. Eyes would follow me, laden with judgment and lurid speculation. I had a warm bed, but I was colder and more alone than ever in my car. The shame had just found a new costume. One evening, the stress overflowed. In the safety of his kitchen, pretending to chop onions, the tears finally fell for this new pain. He found me there. Jessica, those must be the saddest onions in history. Talk to me. And I did. It's the people at work. They think we're together. They think I'm your mistress. They hate me for it. His expression darkened, but his voice remained calm. They are small-minded fools, listening to the whispers of their own envy. I should leave, I said, the words tasting of ash. I've saved a little. I can find a room. The gossip will stop. You can leave any time you wish, he said, holding my gaze. But you will not leave because you are running from their smallness. Do not let their poisoned stories dictate your life. He leaned forward. Look at what you have done. You are learning, growing, becoming formidable. Soon you will not be an assistant. You will be a leader, and you will show them, not with words, but with the sheer force of your capability, exactly who you are. His faith was a shield. Okay, I whispered, a new strength solidifying in my core. I'll stay. The next day, I walked into the office not as a target, but as a soldier. I held Sarah's venomous gaze and smiled, a genuine, calm curve of my lips. Good morning, Sarah. The reports you requested are here. The confusion in her eyes was my first victory. I buried myself in work, mastering every detail of the company's heartbeat. Mr. Wilson quietly entrusted me with more, watching my progress with a proud, almost paternal silence. Months later, the moment arrived, a full staff meeting. Mr. Wilson stood before the assembled company, a quiet power radiating from him. I have an announcement. The new project manager position requires not just skill, but integrity. Someone I trust implicitly. The room held its breath. That person is Jessica. A stunned silence, then a smattering of bewildered applause. And then Sarah stood. Mr. Wilson, with all due respect, is this fair? We all know why she got it. We know she lives with you. A collective sharp intake of breath sucked all the air from the room. The secret was out, thrown onto the conference table like a bloody knife. My entire body burned with a blistering shame. I wanted the floor to open and swallow me. But Mr. Wilson did not flinch. He looked at Sarah with a terrifying calm. Yes, Sarah. Jessica does live in my home. The gasps turned to murmurs. She lives in my guest room. Would you like to know why? He turned his gaze to me, a silent question in his eyes. This was my truth to release. I took a deep, shuddering breath and nodded. It was time. He turned back to the room, his voice projecting not anger, but devastating facts. Jessica arrived in this city with a dream and a suitcase. For 2 years, she worked here and sent virtually every penny she earned back home to save her father's life. She succeeded, and in doing so, sacrificed her own shelter. He let that sink in. For 2 months, this woman who sat beside you, who made your copies, who smiled through her hunger, slept in her car. In the dead of winter. She came to work cold, starving, and exhausted, and never uttered a single word of complaint. He scanned the faces, now etched with shock and dawning shame. When I discovered this, I offered her a room. Not because she is a woman, but because she is a human being in profound need. And in the months since, while you were whispering in the halls, she has been studying. Learning, mastering the intricacies of this business with a dedication I have rarely seen. His final words were quiet, absolute. She did not take a promotion. She earned it. Does anyone else have a question? The silence was absolute, complete. Sarah slowly sank into her chair, her face pale, her eyes fixed on the floor. I'm sorry, she mouthed, the words meant for no one and everyone. The atmosphere in the room transformed. The judgmental stares melted away, replaced by looks of awe, of empathy, of profound respect. After the meeting, colleagues approached me, not with gossip, but with clumsy, heartfelt apologies and congratulations. The mask was gone, and for the first time, I was truly seen. That evening, driving home, the city lights seemed to sparkle with a new kind of magic. "Thank you," I said to him, my voice thick with emotion. "You earned it," he replied simply. "Every bit of it." I still live in that beautiful house. I am saving my money, building a future that is wholly my own. One day, I will move into a place of my own making. I will miss our dinners, our talks, the comforting snore of old Buster at our feet. But some bonds transcend walls. Life is a strange and winding road. The darkest valleys can lead to the most breathtaking vistas. When I was that shivering girl in a frozen car, I believed my story was over. It was only the prelude. I learned that vulnerability is not weakness. It is the crack where true light enters. I learned that kindness still walks this earth, often in the most unlikely of forms. And I learned that your past does not define you. It forges you. My name is Jessica. I found shelter in my boss's house, and in doing so, I found my own strength. And if you are listening now, in your own private darkness, please hold on. Your coldest night might just be the one before the dawn. Keep going. Your story is not over. It is waiting for you to turn the page.